What's up, everyone? I'm Dan Fradenburgh, and this is for figureitout.com. Today, I'm joined with Stephanie Saunders or Saunders? Saunders, that I found from her activities on LinkedIn. She's in the business of representing companies in the fight against insurance companies and DGAF about calling a spade a freaking shovel when it comes to boomers. So Stephanie, that's probably the worst introduction or elevator pitch a respected individual such as yourself could possibly have. So could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Stephanie Saunders. Thanks for having me. I actually appreciate that elevator pitch. It's kind of cool.
Awesome. So but when I first called you, we almost immediately started talking about the bigger picture when it comes to insurance and governance. To catch the audience up a bit, that's you right there. I guess we should assume that you've never done an insurance claim before. Personally, I've only done healthcare claims on my insurance when I was in Taiwan. So it's possible that many people just assume that if something bad happens, then they get their money back and that's that. To be fair, though, insurance companies always have to be on the lookout for fraud, so they're a bit more careful than that. But can you walk me through what that process is first, and then we can talk about where you fit in?
Sure. I think that really what you said is true, right? Insurance companies have to worry about fraud and all of that. And most people assume that they're covered by their insurance company should they ever have a need to utilize it, right? But in reality, I think people misunderstand that insurance companies, whether it be health insurance or property insurance or car insurance, they want to make sure they're not paying out more than they need to. Okay, that makes sense, but they even go less than that, and they try to hold on to whatever they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty nasty situation. But one thing that people have to learn if they're going to be successful, as far as I'm concerned, is managing your time, which means you have to outsource some things and unfortunately let others slip through the cracks. Do you find that insurance companies put an unnecessary amount of bureaucracy into that process deliberately, or perhaps is it inadvertently? Or
so I think there's a lot. That's a loaded question, right? I think there's a lot to that. I think insurance companies intentionally make it more difficult, absolutely. But I also think that they hire people they outsource their process of evaluating how much they pay to people maybe who aren't that experienced. And so, they're not utilizing experts to help them actually figure out the real value, which is where we come in. People like us help the insured represent themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rough. Now, one thing I found out from digging into the U.S. Constitution and reading constitutional law is that the checks and balances of government, we say, oh, it's important to make sure everything's fair, but in a lot of ways, it was meant to stop the government from being efficient at all, even in the best of times. In other words, it's not supposed to work. And the founding fathers realized that if politicians agree, then there's probably something very wrong going on. Right. That's tyranny. But side question, do you go to plays in the theater? Like, is that your thing at all?
Sure, I love that. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever read or seen the play Oleana by David Mamet?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I'd say the conclusion or takeaway of that, which is where that loaded question came from, it's I found that I've been thinking over the last couple of months about how vagaries, like just being vague and being inefficient, and then conflating rules and guidelines. In other words, it might be a rule, it might be a guideline, but if you get the two confused, then it's a problem. And I think in Oleana, the big, I won't spoil it, but the big takeaway is that those are the most powerful tools out there for power. It's basically the right hand of tyranny. It's just being inefficient and you enforce some rules and don't. For example, the government outsources finding an applicable law or a case, like when you're doing a civil suit. And right. So they outsource it to you, the interpretation of how the law applies to us and our legal counsel. We have to sort that out because the judge is just supposed to interpret the argument your counsel has used. And, so the government only has to hire court staff. But so is what you do, is it similar to what a lawyer does, but it's out of court? Is that right?
I think that it's similar to what a lawyer does, but we don't want to go through dragging on a lawsuit, right? I think it's so simple in that it's just helping the regular person, whether they're an asset management group or just a homeowner, understand that they have other options, so it's educating the consumers. So we try to avoid the whole legal aspect of things, because I think, as you mentioned before, it's true that the 800-pound gorilla has so much money to fight a lawsuit battle. So, to go up against someone like that in a court case is not always to your benefit. I mean, of course, lawyers are trained to finish out and achieve the goal, but I just think you don't even need to go to an attorney for something like this. You just need representation.
So if you're going to so basically an attorney is when it's already a little too late.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
too much money goes into that too. I think, we as consumers, we pay attorneys a lot of money to represent us. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a car accident when I was 18 years old, and it was a really bad one. The person hit my car. I broke my femur bone, and I ended up with like a $500,000 settlement, and the attorney wrote 2 letters and took half of that. I needed that. I was, going to have problems for a while, talk about rehabilitation. I mean, so the attorney digs into that for a few bad faith letters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. But, right. But, and you're talking about in the car, and in our original call, when we were first talking, one thing that came up was how the government frequently requires insurance to do many things, such as drive, but also like open a store, own commercial real estate. But, but what protections do we have against our insurance companies?
That's the thing. We don't have a lot, but you do have the right to hire someone to represent you against what their findings are, whether that be someone like us who, we're public adjusters, whether it be just an analyst, an engineer, or an attorney. That's it. You just have to hire someone to represent your side of things to kind of level out the playing field, because that's all you're really allowed.
I had this wasn't in our outline, but I had an interview with a couple of lawyers that was last month, and they said one of the most difficult courses they have is it's called civil procedure, which is just the order of a course, and so I imagine that there are certain procedures involved dealing with the insurance company if you're going to have a better likelihood of winning and getting it over quickly. That's accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that's one thing is you don't know what you don't know, and that's a really tough one. Now, I'm friends with a guy who ran the prospective currency trading division of Taiwan's second biggest bank, and he opened my eyes to a few things when it comes to finances. One is that if, for example, if you want to borrow money, you should borrow money from the big guys because they can take stupid risks that small lenders can't. And when it comes to insurance, though, it seems to me like the big guys would have deep pockets to fight any claim for just ages. So a smaller insurance company would be better. But what have you found?
I mean, I think if in terms of having them being like the best to have a policy with, I think the bigger the better, right? But definitely then that means should you need them, the harder to get the right assistance. Sometimes the smaller guys are more willing, to help, but they have higher risk of going into bankruptcy, right?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And one thing that hit me from an economics perspective is that I suppose everyone's insurance premiums, especially with cars, especially, they have to be somewhat inflated because some people have really expensive cars, even though the person with the expensive car pays most of the bill on a monthly basis. Now, you help with claims on property. So just so we're clear, on the high end, are we talking like 7-figure claims or what?
Well, I mean, on the high end, I live in Miami. We're a national company, so we provide representation on large losses throughout the U.S., and they range from 500,000 to 100 million. One of my biggest claims that I personally handled was a $15 million settlement that they were originally offered 0. So, but locally, I mean, we have high-end large losses in Miami, Venetian, Miami Beach. They're $7 to $20 million homes. So when they have an issue, it's very high payouts. But we also have the average everyday stuff. I mean, a homeowner can, on a $400,000 home, a settlement could be anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000. You'd be amazed, right? If you have a full payout.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what kinds of protections does the government offer from the insurance policies that they force us to buy?
Again, there is only at this current time the right to hire someone to represent you throughout the process. So there is not really any other protection. And what's very interesting, and I think you and I addressed this a little bit, is the government is constantly trying to reduce our ability. So in our industry, we recently have been up against legislation to avoid having our fees reduced, because if our fees are reduced so much, no one can make a living doing what we're doing. So you'll reduce the amount of us, right? So they're constantly trying to rid us of being able to have this as a career and to represent consumers. But really, I think the only protection you have is the right to hire someone. Yeah,
wow, that's really something. But let's move on to the video that I first saw of yours.
Sure, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and when you started off saying that that boomers tended to make one huge mistake earlier on in life. Can you walk us through that?
So I think what I really said was that baby boomers had, and I think it still happens now, but I am the product of baby boomers. Okay. So I think they had children very young, and they were not very well versed in their own direction in life. They didn't have a lot of guidance. So they really messed up their kids, right? Because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't grow. And that as a result then turns into another generation of similar tendencies potentially, or breaking the cycle.
Right. And just so that I've thrown a little bit of mud that way too. So it's not just you. I think that I think part of what happened with a lot of boomers, and yeah, I definitely have witnessed what you've said. There's a certain trophy aspect or checklist aspect. I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I've lived in Taiwan for 15 years, and so I got to see a very, very different twist on what it's all about. And one of the biggest things is I found that when I lived in another country, I had to be even more careful with my girlfriend and / wife or whatever, to make sure that it really is about love and wanting to be with each other, and there aren't any ulterior motives or anything like that. So you do have, you really ought to wait before getting hitched if you live in if you're an expatriate. And when I look back at my parents, I think there was a certain degree that people tend to have, which is say it's like, okay, to be successful, okay, you have to get married, you have to have kids and all that kind of stuff. And they were just in a hurry to become an adult and check off all those boxes. And it just never occurred to them that kids are not a trophy. They're not a little box to be checked. They're people. And so they need everything that people needs, physical, mental, emotional, all that kind of stuff. But
so I don't know about you, but I feel like when people do that and they have checked off the boxes and they have children, there's all this resentment that they then have towards the child, because maybe they didn't do certain things in their life. They didn't travel, they didn't have fun, they didn't get to experience their own growing up. And so there's this resentment, and then the child has to constantly figure out why there's resentment and what they've done wrong. And it plays into their whole life, right? So you're a strong person and you just push through it. Like I personally somehow managed to just kind of put it to the side and ignore it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't recognize how much of an impact it had. Definitely made things much more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and I'm sure you've seen it a million times just as I have. And of course, parenting, it's a very difficult thing. They don't come with pause buttons or mute buttons like a TV, right? But yeah, right. But in my daily videos, I talk about some social issues and I try and give the straight goods. But I try not to criticize old people. And I mean, well, I would say that most people over 60 are way more racist than Xers or millennials or Zoomers. But
I would agree, unfortunately.
yeah, it's I think, and actually, I have something I want to add here because you mentioned that you saw the cameo videos. One of the cameos that I think didn't get as much attention as I'd hoped is the one with Carson Kressley from the original cast of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Okay.
And what I asked him is because it hit me during the riots of was that April? I think it was April. Yeah, in April was the same-sex marriage, basically gay rights and all that kind of stuff. They've been fantastically successful in the last 20 years, and yet we're still dealing with racial issues. And some people would say there are no racial issues. I personally have seen the urban planning where, black neighborhoods are here, and then they put a highway right in the middle, and then the white people are over there. And if you don't have a car, you're not going to cross a highway. Right. And then of course there's also the police side of, just asking people, hey, why are you here? Which seems like a friendly enough question, but it's not at all. Right. But if you live in that kind of thing. So anyway, so back to Carson Kressley, I asked him, so why do you think the gay movement worked so well? Why was it so effective? And his answer, and of course it's just one person saying this, is he said that it's because everybody knew somebody who was gay. And like just as soon as he said, it's like, that's it. It's like the only way that I think you can be racist is by not being around many people of other races. That's me anyway.
I live in a community. I live in Miami, right? I spent a lot of time in New York. We do a lot of business there. I spent a lot of time in Dallas. I feel like in California, those communities are they're melting pots. So for someone to say that they don't know someone of another race is kind of insane, because I know that we all know someone who's Spanish, we all know someone who's Black, we do. So I don't know if I can agree with that aspect. I think that the gay community has done a tremendous job because I think they've had a lot of support. And I think they've delivered a really solid message. So maybe now is the time for the Black community to be delivering another solid message like that.
Yeah, that's that goes along with where I'm going, because like really, it's really the more rural people that I'm talking about, because I find that those are the ones that tend to harbor not just racism, because racism is one thing, okay, like prejudice is one thing. It's actually acting on it, trying to get it into laws, actually like treating people poorly. It's like, if you want to think poorly of somebody, like including myself, within the confines of your own room, not say anything or whatever, then sure, go ahead. It's your mind, it's your head, it's your own little bit of real estate right here. But yeah, that's one of the things. But, I talk a lot about sensitive subjects in my daily videos. I tend to stay away from them in the interviews, but, like you're such a smart cookie and you're good at thinking on your toes. So that's why I really want to get into this. I got one more sensitive subject before we go. So I do figure it out. Just to explain, I do this show as part of my consultancy and promotion through funnelfixing.com, because I became successful from developing web page based e-commerce apps. Okay. And they integrate with shopping cart checkout software, but programming got me up to 200 pounds, and it was not a good look, but it didn't matter. See, no one saw me ever, but now I have this show with more than 200 episodes, and I've interviewed loads of people. And so I've learned the things that I think most men blissfully live their lives ignorant of, like how every human on earth has a best angle. I've been telling people that my left side is a 9, but my right side is actually a 6. Okay, and especially with my hat off, because I got a bad widow's peak. I shaved my head for like 13 years or something, and I finally ended up growing it out, and I found out, okay, if you just keep on growing it, you can kind of, do a double comb over kind of thing, and it doesn't, well, I guess I kind of have to now. Yeah, it's not great, but anyway, it was hot earlier when I was filming. But anyway, so you agree with the best angle thing, and I'd say that more women dabble in what I call, that part, which is, I'm going to call it polishing their exterior, polishing
Yeah.
your exterior. And so I'd say more women dabble in that than don't, but I'd say maybe 10% of men spend any time at all learning how to make themselves look better. And that's what I mean by polishing the exterior. I mean, knowing your angles, learning how to work with what you got. And
Right.
and part of that might be cosmetics and moisturizers and exfoliators, but clothes and shoes are the more obvious part of that.
Right.
Now, I'm being really careful in my words. I admit that, I had to massage the subject in, because I actually want to talk about femininity independently of that skill of looking your best. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm taking looks out of the equation, because if you know as much as I do, and I expect that you do, about that, polishing the exterior part, I think that skill is way more important than what you're actually born with. So I'm not implying anything about you in particular, because that's the biggest dick move ever. But if you have this skill of finding your best angles and all that kind of stuff, and your friends have that skill, then you'll probably agree that knowing how to bring out your best features is more important than what you're born with. Would you agree with that?
Sure, I agree.
Okay. And would you say that's true for both men and women?
I would say that personality is one of the most important things. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. There's a great movie with what's her name, Audrey Tautou. Have you seen the French movie called Emily, Le Fabulous Destin d'Amélie Poulain?
No, I
Okay.
haven't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
It's got that famous French actress who was in the Da Vinci Code with
Okay.
Tom Hanks, and there's this fantastic part. So the movie that I'm talking about is called Priceless, and you can get it with subtitles, or you can get it in French. And it's about these two people that don't really have anything going for them except for, basically making themselves pretty. And she coaches this bartender in becoming pretty. And one thing she ends up saying is that looks are irresistible. Looks are resistible. Money's resistible. There's only one thing that's irresistible, and that's charm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. And I think we're all going through this weird thing where everything is virtual now.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have the ability to give like our natural charms. So we have to get used to seeing ourselves on these videos and finding our best angles and being comfortable so that our charm comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's really about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that's the thing. See, I've realized during lockdown, as I said, that many men completely brush that part of life aside, and like in the sense that like even if their spouse or a woman in their life is ultra focused on it, they're just like, that's just a waste of time or whatever. But I learned all this stuff because my wife really cares about it. And I'm turning into a Smurf because of my camera settings. I don't know why, but anyway, so we found each other on LinkedIn. I mean, you and me, not me and my wife, right?
Oh, I was going to say,
right,
you and
right.
your wife found each other on LinkedIn. That's amazing.
Yeah. I actually met her in Taiwan. She's an import. So,
okay.
But anyway, so I know that you know the value of a public image to your career, your business, and your brand. And this the question that I really want to massage in here before saying it finally is, I'm curious, now that I've made the distinction here between polishing your exterior and just plain womanhood, I'd like to ask your opinion. Mm-hmm. In your public stuff, I primarily see you wear dresses, and I chalk that up to a well-weighed decision that is the most effective way to promote and project the image you want. And here's the thing I was telling you before the call. I'm actually having a fully digitized deepfake AI created of myself in the next 30 days. And I'm picking wardrobe. I already
want to know if you should wear a dress or not?
Yeah, if I can, I don't know, whatever I do, just to get more attention,
Right.
So anyway, no, I'm just talking about that. So I'm not just being a creep here. I'm saying that, like your clothes and all that kind of stuff, it's a decision that you should make. And I was curious if you could give advice to people watching, if they're trying to make their own wardrobe decisions for their public image.
Right.
Like, do you think that you can be, that if you can be sexy, you should just go for it, or like even if you don't really want to, or you look boring, or if you look boring, or like a librarian in like, what do you even call it? Like man adapted, like pantsuits,
I actually love a good pantsuit. I'm not going to lie. I mean, talk about a powerhouse woman with confidence who can wear a pantsuit and look good in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's your personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I love to mix it up. I think I love to wear a dress because I am a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
I do find dresses to be feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to make sure people understand that I am not just this strong, businesswoman. So in the same sense, I'm also very strong, and some people maybe take that to another degree. So seeing me in a dress maybe helps paint the picture that I am also a feminine woman. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's really important what you choose to wear in that image. But I think even if you have some bad photos, it all comes down to what you're actually trying to talk about and the message you're delivering, which is your personality and then that charm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of something I learned when I started studying Spanish. It's you know how in English there's no such thing as a stewardess anymore, right? It's a flight attendant. Okay, well in Spanish, and I can't spot your genetic background accurately enough.
Tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, exactly. But with Spanish, they do the exact opposite thing for the same reason. So what I'm talking about is, like, for example, traditionally male jobs such as an engineer, to my recollection, it was like ingeniero, okay? Whereas the female version would also be ingeniero, but a lot of women in the last 20 years, maybe a little bit longer, have been saying, no, wait a second, I'm a woman and I'm proud of it. I'm not an ingeniero, I'm an ingeniera.
Right.
And so it's for the same reason, which is, there's a job distinction, a job description, a title, where it, I think the reason why the word actress is no good anymore is because, like, no, I do the same work as a man, and so my title shouldn't do that. And I just feel that the Spanish approach, it embraces femininity more, but I went to all that effort earlier talking about polishing your exterior and separating that from femininity, but there are so many more things to that than just like looks or whether you decide to show some skin or not. But
looks doesn't matter if you have nothing underneath it, I think.
Yeah.
You can be the prettiest on the internet, the most professional, the sexiest dressed, but you're a nasty human, and I don't want to listen to you.
Right. And that's what I did with. I remember there was one model that I had. She calls herself Emmy Elliott. I saw that in her little preview. She said she does everything in her underwear, and I'm like, okay, but I don't really, I want the eye candy, but I don't really want to exploit anyone. And so I was going like, what if I can show somebody that they're more than a pretty face? And so that's why I started, getting these people to like, even though she did her video in her underwear, as soon as she started talking about how she was giving advice on building your social media audience and your influence, I noticed that I got back to that phase of, okay, this is kind of like a humble brag. I've spent the night at a girl's dorm before, back in college, and basically I find that once you're around enough women, or at least once I'm around enough women, then I think I start to see women as women see each other, in the sense of just like, okay, yeah, it's just awkward walking around doing our things, and because they're letting their guard down, and so this is something that I think is a really important thing, because I think that it's part of femininity that I don't think has been parsed out well enough for people to be able to walk away and not feel guilty. Like, I think some people feel guilty for not dressing, a little bit hotter, or not dressing a little bit more professional. It's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing.
Right. I think there's a fine line, but I think especially right now with this COVID era, like, we all should be dressing up, even if we're just sitting on our Zoom. So it feels good to have a photo taken of you looking nice, even if it's on your iPhone in your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's something I've been working from home for 10 years, and that was one of the first things I learned is dress for work, because you'll feel more.
Show up and dress up.
Exactly. So so there you go. But I guess while we're talking about other things that people might wear publicly, we're talking about wardrobe. Some people wear costumes too on the internet. What do you think about being extra cute with like stuffed animals or like little like rabbit ears?
I mean, it's cute, right? It definitely gets attention. It depends on what you're going for. I think influencers can do that. I think you want to be seen as a professional businesswoman. I don't know that that's the best angle unless you're talking about something related to children education or something, right?
Pokemon cards, or
Yeah.
video games. Yeah, yeah,
Or
right.
video games. There you go.
There you go. But last question. When creating content, how do you recommend people balance quantity versus quality of content you release? Like, how do you personally make those decisions?
So that's a tough one, right? I think especially in the beginning, you're trying to get a feel for what's really valuable to your audience and what you want to portray. So it's almost like quantity is fine until you figure it out, and then you can streamline it into being more about quality.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the things that I think scares people about having an ultra public persona. See, like 3 years ago, I called Equifax to find out what was going on because like somebody checked my credit and it was for an apartment because I just moved back from Taiwan, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And they said, okay, what's your social security number? And I told them that, and they said, okay, and what's your name? And they're like, who? It's like, oh, that explains it. So I was a ghost. Okay, I was the most private person out there. You know, I studied electrical engineering 20
Same
years
here, by
ago.
the way.
Sorry?
Same here.
Yeah. And it's such a hard decision, and people are afraid of that. But one of the things that I know, because the way that I, like, before I made my public image, I came from tech, but I was working for a bunch of 7-figure businesses online. And so I didn't need a public image or anything like that. But the important thing is we had advertising budgets where I remember spending $150,000 on ads before, right?
Right.
With the company. And why do they do that? That's because the stuff you put online is buried.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to find something, you got to know what you're looking for and you got to search for it.
Right.
And nobody cares.
Well,
So,
I was also I had no reason to be on social media. I worked for the banks. I was deep in corporate America. And the last thing you wanted to do is really be talking about all of that online. And I also really enjoyed having a private personal life. So I struggled with it at first, but I realized with this whole COVID era that if you don't get out there, how will you see anyone anymore, right? And also, I've found that sharing your story has more of an effect on someone than you realize. So you never know who's listening to you. Since I've started talking about my journey and the things I've experienced, I've had so many young women ask me for advice. And I've seen people that I've looked to for advice also. So I think we are all of value to each other, especially when we're willing to be open and share experiences.
wow, that's fantastic. All right, thanks for being here today. And if you want to work with Stephanie, you can go to the link that's inside the description. You'll see that there. And can you give me the best reason for somebody to call you today?
I think it's that I'm a good human.
That's definitely the reason to do business.
I'm a good advocate for others, and I do very well getting people money when they're owed it, especially after they have property damage. And I'm an expert in real estate, and I understand investment strategy, so I'm here to assist with helping protect your assets.